Hello everyone, my name is Jose Adrian Badillo Carlos. I am a PhD candidate student here at Michigan State University, and I am also the editorial graduate assistant for the Revista de Estudios de Género y Sexualidades. Today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my copy editing experience for a professional journal and a little bit of the editorial process. First, we're going to begin with a little bit of background information about the journal. Since 1975, the Revista de Estudios de Género y Sexualidades has been publishing articles, interviews, book reviews, both in English and Spanish, and each published issue has had between 160 to 200 pages. As the editorial TA for the Revista de Estudios de Géneros y Sexualidades, my expected duties were to attend a training about the digital management of the journal's web portal. Now, the journal's portal is set up in a way that it is very easy to use for everybody. Authors, reviewers, editors. Natalie's training, Natalie is our journal's manager. Her training helped me understand not only the portal layout, but also the long editorial process that takes place for each essay before it gets published. Another one of my duties was to assist in the management of submissions, reviews, revisions, and for those, I would read, correct, and make suggestions on the essays and share them with their respective authors. This way, we would review the changes and revisions together, and I would mark them ready for the next step of the process if everything seemed correct. This is very similar to the copy editing duty that I was also assigned for all of these essays. So I assisted in the copy editing of final versions of the articles, again, both in English and Spanish. And then if everything seemed correct, we would send them to the MSU Press for typesetting. For the copy editing, or my role as a copy editor, I was mostly focusing on revising the formatting of the articles and making sure that they follow the MLA 7th edition guidelines, as well as our journal's guidelines. And if everything seemed correct, then I would mark them as done on my part, or my part of the process, and then the journal's manager would revise them again to get them ready to send out to the MSU Press for typesetting and eventually publish them. And other projects that I assisted with were updating and organizing the inventory of our previous journals, as well as updating the list of reviewers to help us with the peer review process. Overall, I think now I have a better understanding of the lengthy process of publishing an article. Before working as the editorial TA, I never understood why it took so long until it was published. Now I understand all the steps, all the filters, and all the people that are part of this process. Now I know what copy editing involves, which is a lot of attention to detail, organization, and effective time management. There are a lot of things to look out for while copy editing any essay. I quickly realized that I could not read and copy edit one essay in one sitting. So structuring my time, reading several times, and trying to be consistent helped me develop a system that worked for me. You might develop your own system, but it's important to be consistent. I have also expanded my knowledge of the formatting rules and how to apply them. I learned different techniques and writing styles from each author, as well as formatting rules that I had to look up to make sure how they were applied and if they were applied correctly. And overall, I think I have become a better reader and writer. The role of the copy editor in the REGS publishing process, I think, takes place during the fourth step. So before the article is assigned to me as a copy editor, it goes through different steps, as you can see in the illustrations. That is, after the author has submitted their essay, then after it has passed the double-blind review successfully, and after it has been accepted by the journal editor. Then it is assigned to me for copy editing. But what is copy editing? Copy editing is a process of checking for mistakes, inconsistencies, formatting, and any other guidelines established by the journal to polish the essay and get it ready for publication. This process, once it's assigned to me, takes about 3 to 4 weeks to copy edit all the articles and getting them ready for the next step. Now, here you can see that after I am assigned the article for copy editing, I go through the process of looking for mistakes, formatting, and any other guidelines established by the journal. Once I am done with that part, or that first stage of the copy editing process, the essay is then uploaded to the portal so the author can look at the feedback and correct or clarify any questions or formatting issues on their essay. And this also takes time for them to receive, to review, and to resubmit. Once the author resubmits the essay with corrections, it is then revised by Natalie, who is our journal's manager. And she verifies that all corrections have been made, and if there are no other issues, then she approves it, and it is then organized with the other essays to prepare them all for typesetting. But before sending it to print, we review that one last time to make sure that there were no other mistakes that we missed. And if everything's okay, then the journal issue is finalized and is ready to be printed or published. As you can see, there are many steps involved in the editorial process of our journal. Copy editing itself is a lengthy process, and it requires the following: efficient time management, organization of tools, specifically the REGS guidelines, the MLA 7th edition handbook, other websites or PDFs, or anything that you might come across that explains the MLA 7th edition guidelines and rules. It also requires the development of a system that works for you, that adapts to you. And the last thing that it requires is keeping notes for reference or a journal. Now, for time management, as I said before, and I cannot stress this enough, copyediting takes a very long time because you're not only checking for grammar, but you're also checking for formatting. And the majority of these essays are formatted correctly for the most part. But every now and then, you run into some issues that take some time to consulting other sources, like the MLA 7th edition handbook, websites. There are some video tutorials you might find, etc. Any tools or sources that would allow you to go through the revisions more efficiently will save you time in the long run. As you read, start marking the checkboxes on the checklist document. This document is given to copy editors as a way to keep track of all the required guidelines and to make sure that the essay meets them all. It also helps when you schedule copy editing sessions of 45 minutes. This is important because you need to give yourself a break from reading, It also helps when you schedule copy editing sessions of 45 minutes. This is very important because it will give your eyes a break from all the text, or if you're reading on a monitor, from all that blue light. For the organization of tools, the copy editor checklist and the REGS guidelines, which are also sent to the authors, they are essential to make sure that each essay follows all the editorial standards for publication. Another thing that you should have handy is the MLA 7th edition handbook. This is probably the first choice of mine when there's any doubt in the MLA 7 style guidelines. I usually go there. Sometimes, if it's just a quick question or doubt, I just do a Google search, and then I will come across some of the websites with explanations, examples. Some even have video tutorials explaining more complex guidelines. So those, I usually bookmark them on my browser so that I can always access them later. As I mentioned before, it is important to find a system that works for you. To help me stay organized, I use the copy editor's checklist and the REGS guidelines. I also look for grammar mistakes like accents, typos, commas, etc. But first, before reading the essay, I use the spelling and grammar check tool on Microsoft Word, and I go through any mistakes that Microsoft Word thinks, should be corrected. I also then read the essay and I pay attention myself to the spelling and grammar of many, words or names or ideas, because Microsoft Word does not always detect everything. Finally, after I'm done reading the essay, and just in case I missed any typo or double spaces, which are common sometimes, I also run the spelling and grammar check again, just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Another thing that I do is while I'm reading, I check every in-text reference or citation with its works cited entry, just to make sure that they match with the correct formatting, the correct, last name, first name, page numbers, etc. If everything is correct, then I highlight or change the color of the entire entry. And so I do this for each citation, each reference that I come across within the essay. That way, at the end, I should have a list of entries in the works cited page that they should all match in the same color or the same highlight. If there's one entry that does not have the same color, is not highlighted the same, then maybe that citation was not in the right format or was not mentioned within the text. It's also important to keep a record for yourself of each endnote location, such as like the page number or the paragraph that you come across, because some essays have footnotes or endnotes, and sometimes there's an issue with the formatting. So if converting them to endnotes automatically is not possible, then you already know where to find each one of them, so you can do it manually because you kept a record of their location, such as the page number and the paragraph where you found those endnotes or footnotes. And the endnotes should go right in between the essay and the works cited page. That is where the endnotes go. As I mentioned before, you must stay organized and also organize your time. So checklist, references, endnotes, links, videos, any tools, any resources that will help you stay organized, you should keep them in a journal or just a Word document or Google Docs document, so that you can always access links, quick questions, quick answers, examples. This also allows you to keep track of the formatting questions or answers that you may come across that you may not have been familiar with, but for future reference, they will be very easy to access. And this is also useful for evaluating the work that you did and what was successful and what was not successful, as far as the formatting, time management, and organization. And this is sort of like a reflection on, what worked and what didn't work. How can I improve my system for future essays? What did I learn? What should I be doing differently? Also, take notes about the style of the authors, because those are some of the tools that you can use for your own writing as well. So, to summarize a little bit my copy editing experience and why it's a lengthy process, as I mentioned before, copy editing takes a long time. It also takes a lot of preparation and organization. You have to develop your own system with your tools, your resources, your time, and more. So having everything organized and accessible will help you do a better job and do it more efficiently. Also, it's a lengthy process because not all writers format equally. Some essays are almost perfect and require just a little bit of time just to check a few things here and there. But some essays require more time for copy editing than others, and that's because sometimes Microsoft Word does not cooperate with the formatting, indentation, the placement of the endnotes or footnotes. So that takes some time to get it right. Other times the works cited page, it's not consistent, so you have to make sure you check for every single entry and it is in the right format. And overall, I've learned that the process of publishing an article, it's long, and that's because each member of the editorial team is usually working on different tasks, and that takes time as well because there are so many steps involved. As a personal note, I've learned from different authors and their writing styles and techniques, and I've learned how to implement a few of their techniques on my own writing as well. We have now reached the end of my presentation. I would like to thank you for listening to me about my copyediting experience. I hope you learned something new. I definitely learned a lot. It was a great experience for me. I think I've become a better writer, better reader. I learned a lot about the techniques that the writers use and also a lot of the formatting rules. I'm sure if you become a copy editor in the future, you will have a similar experience and you will learn a lot. So thank you for listening to this, and hopefully my presentation would help you get started in your copy editing experience.